So today's session is CTO versus CTO, the realities of building event tech. And joining me today is Peter from Gleanin. Hi, Peter. So welcome, Peter. It's great to have you here. I think you are probably our seventh guest on these sessions. Please give a quick introduction to yourself and to Gleanin.
Yeah, so Gleanin is a word-of-mouth marketing platform for people who market events, and I am CTO and one of the co-founders of the business. We have been going for 14 years now, I think, but in various guises, and the last kind of big product rewrite was COVID, which obviously impacted us all. But so that's been kind of like the focus of the last 5 years has been this version of the product.
Right. So, this is going to be a good session. I think we've got lots to talk about. And I think normally when you and I get together for a cup of coffee, we can lose a day quite easily.
Yes.
But this is part of FFAIR's event expert series. It's practical solutions for event pros. And today we're diving into event tech from a CTO's perspective. Now, Peter, how did Gleanin come about, and what is your background specifically?
So my background, I started my life at IBM, or career at IBM, as a developer. I then stopped that. I went off and did an MBA. And then after that started a business with my co-founders, AJ. This is our second startup together, Events, which we started in 2011 with Tamar, CEO, who you know. And this has been the first product, very first product from Gleanin was a listen to social media, so social media monitoring. And then once we got into the industry, we morphed into what we are now. So rather than listening to the conversation, we help people drive the conversation on social media and other platforms. But it's been probably 5-6 different products in that lifetime.
I love it. Going with the flow more than anything, I guess, and adapting. So what does it really mean to be a CTO? Because somehow or other I managed to win best CTO, and
still sour, still bitter.
Still bitter, I can imagine. I wear it with pride. But there are people that wouldn't see me as a typical CTO. I probably wouldn't see myself as a typical CTO, but as a startup, you kind of take on many roles, and you can't just go around hiring CROs and CTOs and CFOs. So you kind of take on most of it. But what does it mean to you to be a CTO? What is a CTO in your mind?
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, it really, really depends on the organization. And from a startup perspective, if you want to start something, you kind of start where you are. And I think when our last conversation, I think so I was a developer, so my background was technical co-founder, and at that point we didn't think about roles. It's only when you start going and like looking for investment and that kind of thing that you need to be a bit more formal and say who does what, and this, okay, I'm responsible for this. So from my perspective, it was the very first days where like create the product. And then as it progressed, you kind of guide the technical team that you hire. And then it morphs into, I think, where the direction you came to being a CTO into product and product management and product design and those kind of things. And as a small startup, you end up doing all of it. Until you're at the size where you can hire somebody that does this, and if you can hire somebody that does that. So yeah, I think in a larger organization, kind of like sort of traditional business, the role of a CTO is very, very different. And I am completely unqualified to talk about what that would be like.
It's interesting because I've seen different CTOs at different companies, and there seems to be this kind of the startup level. It's rare to find a CTO. At the mid-level, you've got your pure CTO, and then at the corporate level, you've got CTOs who can't program their heating system. So they're
deciding which mail provider you use, and I think as it's kind of going from like just literally doing it to that mid-level, I think it's definitely product from my perspective, and kind of trying to set, I think the typical answer is trying to set the technical direction of stuff. So the architecture that you're using, but I've seen it more very much from technical to product and product focus.
What are the biggest challenges of building event tech, do you think?
One of the things I think is the cyclical nature of it. So particularly if you're going to exhibitions, which was our first kind of like our target customers we would sell to exhibitions, in a virtual world, you're like, okay, I've got this SaaS platform and it's kind of year round, you pay a monthly subscription and and then you go and sell it to somebody who's, well, I've got one event per year and everything works towards that. And if you kind of spend your working life behind a keyboard, actually going and seeing just one of these things where you get 10,000 people at the same place at the same time is, and that kind of picturing that when you're not in that, because I'm not from events, or wasn't from events, I'm now, picturing that and kind of the implications of the pressure that your customers are feeling in the build up to that. And you're wanting to get feedback on how does this product go, and they're wanting to like, they've got 3 weeks to show and they don't want to talk to you. And I think that's actually our customers do want to talk to us. They're very good about that. But I think that build up and the crescendo of in real life, particularly large exhibitions, offers challenges that suddenly things we accidentally, when in our first product, we were monitoring for I can't remember what the name of the event was, but their hashtag was EE Live, and we were monitoring at the same time that EastEnders Live was so I kind of come into the office and they're like, blimey. So I mean, it's kind of I guess that's a different kind of event that impacted us. I think as we've progressed but as we've progressed with our kind of tried to get exhibitions and other types of event organizers, the subtleties of the differences between events mean that something that works really well for customer A, it's not quite right, but the small differences in customer B's event profile can make your product not suitable at all. And I think we found that quite a few times, that you kind of events are, oh yeah, we've got exhibitions, we'll add conferences, why not concerts, why not blah 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 blah, and you kind of think that one size will fit all and it doesn't. And I think kind of understanding your customer really closely, I mean that's kind of across industry, but events, just saying events kind of conjures so many different types of events to so many people.
Yeah, this is true. It's most people think you're a wedding planner. If you say you work with events, that's normally the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, or they want you to work with the events that they care about and they're passionate about. So yeah, it's like, hey, what about marathon organisers? You're like, oh, it's kind of not really our target market. But
no, not quite. So, yeah. Given your background outside of the industry, how does event tech compare to other industries like fintech and martech? I mean, you touched on it a little bit. So.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience with those industries. I think the things that I mentioned are the big difference. Like, there's not many industries where you get 10,000 people or thousands of people on a day turning up somewhere, that kind of pressure, and also the crash afterwards. I know for organisers, like once their event is done, I mean, I've never been through it myself, but the relief is kind of like palpable, and the excitement that builds. I don't think you get that in other industries. I think that even that impacts the sales cycle as well. So if you're trying to sell to somebody and they're 4 months out from a show, they're not changing a big supplier at that point. They're like, okay, yeah, come back in 6 months. So I think those are the kind of particularly for exhibitions, the annual cycle impacts so much of I think what you're doing if you're selling to events.
And probably happens slightly less now than it used to, but that that kind of cyclical approach to events, it was almost what I tend to find was people would get through that cycle, and because it was a success, don't change anything. It was
Yeah,
kind of, yeah, we did okay. Let's not change anything. Let's not upset the apple cart. And that's something I notice. Actually, it's reducing more. I think maybe a change of generation coming into our industry, and they're looking at it going, "Oh God, why have we been doing this for the last 20 years? It doesn't make
yeah.
sense."
And on that, I think so we're like tech. We talk about tech. You think one of our products, I know you laugh, was a registration product, which was it was the worst summer we ever had, because the amount of support that causes is unbelievable. But we were doing the tech layer of that, but the people who actually do registration have huge logistics sides of the businesses that you need to consider. And if you mess up on site, that's a huge thing. So you can understand that reluctance to take risks and try wildly different things next year. If you know somebody who can mobilize the workforce, get all just kind of like the things that when you go as a visitor, you just assume that your badge is going to print and scan and yeah, so I think that because it's so pressured probably contributes to that, pressured over a short time period. Yeah, that kind of, do I really want to change this is very real.
Thinking back to my first development team, I remember we'd promised some features for an event, and I think we were a little bit behind. And I remember having a conversation with the team and said, like, we've got no other option. We've got to deliver this. And their response was, no, there is an option. Why don't you just delay it? It's like, what delay the release or delay the show? And they couldn't comprehend, because they come from the gaming world where I can just release it, and actually that creates more FOMO when people get more excited. You push it back, but I had to really hit home to them that this doesn't move. If you miss that boat, that's it. You've missed it. You can't change.
I mean, when we're adding to the product, we will we add it to, so we're a platform. So if we improve it for everybody, kind of all boats rise kind of thing. But we will occasionally, we're taking direction from customers, so there will be a first customer to a feature, and one of the first question almost is, when is your show and when do you need this by? Before we commit to say we're doing this for your show, what's the timeline like? Because if it's going to cause you, like your team, and you probably felt pretty stressed then, but your customers, that's going to get passed on to them as well. If they're doubting that it's going to be ready, how am I going to do this? What's my alternative? Are they having to think of a plan B? It all goes back to that kind of like the big pressure of this is happening. The date's not moving. Like lorries are turning up, builders are turning up.
So what's been the toughest product challenge at Gleanin? Obviously, you've changed 5 times and pivoted 5 times, so I imagine it's a catalyst.
And for different reasons. I think the biggest, it ended up kind of okay, but we had we used to use a LinkedIn and API, so we were kind of social media monitoring, but there's also analyzing the social graph of your connections and who else had registered. The idea being that if you're at an exhibition or going to an exhibition, if you know somebody who's going, you're more likely to turn up, right? Especially if you've said, "Hey, Adam, are you going to be there? I'll see you for coffee," which is conversion in exhibitions is like a real issue. The cost of registration is free. I've got a busy day. Am I going to turn up? It's an issue. But we built on LinkedIn's API, and we got an email saying this is being turned off, I think, in 2 weeks' time. And then you're like, okay, right, what does this product look like without this? Is it fatal? Is it okay? Actually, this is a small part of it, but you rely on these other things. And actually, one of the things, and you'll know that the number of integrations that you have and that we have, there's an ecosystem you have to plug into other systems. People have got well, you'll have all of the exhibitor data, there's speaker data, and there's a CRM somewhere. And how do you get all of that? But the reliance on third-party systems, or the use of third-party systems, is kind of, I mean, the LinkedIn was a shock challenge, and now seeing different platforms' views of even how the data is structured, or their models of how the world works in an event. That's always, it's getting, some people are good at it, but it's kind of like some people, especially the older platforms, where the API was written when people weren't really using APIs and that kind of thing. That's been kind of challenging as well.
I've definitely experienced the same thing. In the floor plan system at show plans, we used a 3D game engine, thinking that that's going to be beautiful, it's going to be slick, it's going to really work very, very well. And we built it. A couple of years later, we had the same sort of thing. Unity emailed to say that they're stopping support for WebGL. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess we need to re-platform then. And that's a whole year's worth of development to get it onto a different platform. So
and then you can, well, we'll build everything in house, and like, actually it's helpful to rely on some of this other stuff, but it's you need to kind of, it's where backing the right horse kind of matters, and at the time things can look like great decisions.
This is right. So. It definitely shapes my decision making now, and looking for more open source kind of languages that are there, supported by a community rather than supported by a company, because company decision making can be so heavily influenced by all things, whereas the communities tend to struggle. So JavaScript is kind of our way forward, really. So it's less scary and what can happen. So we're going to move on to the future of event tech. Where do you see event tech evolving in the next 5 years?
It's hard to ignore AI. How that's going to come in is yet to be seen. We're hoping to kind of like set some of that, but we're seeing it internally as a tool. Our customers will be using it internally as a tool. Does that change things? Does it do things that providers are used to doing? I think that's a change. Talking to customers, we know that, like, this is like, email is dead. Email deliverability is a massive issue for everybody and getting worse. And historically has been, I think, the biggest. I mean, we're marketing, but it's the biggest marketing channel for most of our customers. I don't know how it's going to change, but it kind of feels like something has to. So but it's everybody's there, and it's ubiquitous, and it's a bit like spreadsheets of the API of the world. You kind of, if you can take a spreadsheet, that's kind of, you're happy. Email is the equivalent. So I don't know how that's going to change.
Email's an interesting one, because
maybe it just becomes like a smaller channel from our perspective, for marketing. If it's not effective, you just invest less in it. But it's so easy to send 50,000 emails, not so easy to deliver them, I guess, is the point. So who knows?
It's interesting that it's probably 20 years since I tried to keep my inbox to nothing, read every email, and now I don't even look at my junk folder anymore, just because there's thousands upon thousands of emails. I know my mum does. She tries to read every email and tells me about it. But I think that delivery and reading emails is a major problem. How do you get through to people now?
Because I know that if I've got some that do get in my inbox, if I don't know the person, typically I'll just delete them. You can tell. It's like, hey Peter, my colleague Jeff was talking about you at lunch. You're like, was he though? This is like,
Yeah, of course he was. Apparently, you breathe and I breathe, so we've got something in common.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's a good one.
yeah.
So, what innovations excite you the most?
I mean, AI at the moment,
Uh-huh.
but AI I'm seeing, I think things that give you like a superpower. So things that suddenly a customer, so like the one of the innovations that we had with this product was this mass producing of images that took designers hundreds of hours, and it's just this is it allowed our customers to do something that was really expensive, time consuming, and painful to do. So the innovations, it's kind of the kind of innovations, the ones that solve a real problem, and the ones that feel like you've been given like some special power. It's like, oh wow,
Uh-huh.
this look at what I can do now. AI at the moment kind of just feels like that, sort of in lots of places. So even just having a conversation with, or like asking a question, like, oh right, now I understand this, I could go and do that. Yeah, it's a little bit amazing at the moment, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think harnessing it is really where, I'm seeing people using it in really exciting ways, and
yes.
useful ways and problem-solving ways now. Yeah, it's one of those. I don't think people realise quite how powerful it can be, and it's so consumer level now that everybody's using it. It's so easy to access that everybody can
Yeah,
utilize it. So.
yeah. I think the challenge will be, because we've had sort of AI, machine learning kind of product startups previously. I
Uh-huh,
think using it in a way that makes sense, to actually deliver value, actually solve a problem. Yeah, that'll be interesting, and in a way that people can't just go do it on ChatGPT themselves.
uh-huh.
And one of the things that we're thinking about is how do you, like the context of an event. You need, if the more AI knows about your context, the better whatever you're trying to achieve will turn out. How do you add your insight as a company, so your knowledge but keep your customers kind of context of events completely separate to every other context of event, and making sure that you're kind of like your shared, so we're thinking it's kind of like Gleanin brain. How does that kind of get kind of delivered to everybody in a way that's like your kind of individual events information is secure over here in a silo. Yeah.
So I was going to ask the question: AI automation integrations, are they game changers or hype? Yeah, I think the answer to that one's obvious, really.
AI feels like a game changer, and we're seeing it internally as well. So like the tools that you use, we're using, have changed massively, or are changing. Automation and integrations, I think automation is one of the things that we've tried to lean into anyway. Integrations, I think, is going back to the point earlier of where you have so many other players or providers that are part of your customers' event lifecycle. If you're not kind of integrating to them, that's a difficult thing to kind of, I think, kind of overcome for a customer. I've got, and even so, just knowing talking to customers and saying, okay, which of these is your source of truth for this information? Because I've got it in a system over here, in a spreadsheet over here, in another system over here, and a CRM over there. So kind of understanding that, and then getting those to talk. Those integrations do feel. I wouldn't say game changer. almost
Yeah, it's funny because I guess you and I probably feel the most pain in integration, because I think at the surface level it seems easy. Other people do it, and other systems integrate to each other, but actually the configuration of that falls on your lap, probably more than my lap, to be honest, where you're actually trying to get two incompatible things to talk to each other and do what's required. I mean, it gives me anxiety when we know that we have to integrate and we want to integrate and we want to provide kind of best in class connections and all that good stuff, but the actual delivery of it is quite scary because it's. I think I likened it to bush tucker trial where you're putting your hand in a black box and you don't know what's inside.
Yeah, so we've spent a while kind of focusing on them, and had exactly that experience, but now arrived at a pattern of integrating that seems to work. So what you find in that box might not be that great, but kind of like work with it before you pull it out of the box and see. And so we've kind of got quicker at those integrations. I think the other thing on those is if you're Salesforce or HubSpot, you don't need to integrate to anybody, right? Like you integrate to us, we're the big fish in the pond. And if you're a startup, you need to be nobody's going to publish an API, nobody's going to go and integrate with you. And I think that's quite often, a lot of the time, customers are relieved if you say, well, we're going to do this, because you'll get two providers on the same call and nobody really wants to do the work.
Yeah, it's true.
So we've got an API, they can use it. Oh no, we've got an API, they can use it. Kind of conversations.
Yeah, it's funny because we built our API very, very early on, and for 2.5 years nobody used it. We were the ones doing the integrating.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah. So final thoughts. I think it's a great insight into the mind of a CTO and how it differs from other people or other roles in the industry, because I don't think there's much visibility of the CTO role in events. They're the kind of people that don't seem to get out as much as.
Well, I send Tamar out because she's better with people than I am. So.
Well, that's great. So, yeah, very good to kind of get your insight, hear about the challenges and how you overcame them. I know we had lots of conversations, and probably this is where maybe I've got a fair amount of experience about how you get teams functioning at a high level. And I think you and I have spoken about Scrum and Agile methodologies and sort of how we get those working. So I think you and I kind of talk about these things quite a lot. And then, good to hear kind of where Gleanin are going and utilizing AI and pushing forward with that, and actually not being afraid to test it out and sort of knowing that it can be utilized for a real world problem. I think that's really important.
I think at the moment, if you're not embracing it, that's gonna not end well at the moment.
It's going to be a Kodak moment, isn't it? Digital cameras, that's not the future.
Yeah.
Yes. Where can people connect with you and Gleanin?
On LinkedIn, or they can email me at peter@gleanin.com.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for today. It's been great chatting as always. I think our next chat's probably on about mountain bike, throwing ourselves down it. So it's fun to people. All righty. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Adam.